Hello everyone, today I will show you some tips for creating annotations formatted as JSON to configure integrations with Datadog Autodiscovery. Let's take a look at this example of annotations configuring open metrics checks. Can you spot what's wrong with them? It's not super clear at first glance, but the JSON is broken because of the missing curly brackets inside the square brackets. An annotation like this can lead to misconfigured integrations that aren't picked up by the Datadog Agent for monitoring. Here is the correct way to configure this annotation. Since it can be so easy to break JSON, I'll share a few ways to double check that annotations are correct so that there aren't any misconfigurations. This video focuses on Autodiscovery version 2 syntax since it's cleaner and used more widely than version 1. Let's start by writing an annotation to configure the Redis DB integration for my Redis deployment so I can monitor it. I already have a Redis pod running in my cluster from this deployment. If we run a kubectl get pods, we can see that here. Here is the deployment YAML called redis deployment.yaml that I will be working with. Since JSON can be cumbersome, I'd like to start by writing my configurations separately in a YAML format, with the integration name on the first line, all lowercase. Then we put the init config. Then we put the instances with our configurations. This is especially helpful for larger and more complex configuration in an integration. Then I convert this to JSON using an online tool, a YAML to JSON converter. I'll paste the YAML here, click on YAML to JSON, and we get an output that should look like this. This will be the JSON that I'll copy and paste as the annotation value. But first, I'd like to follow the Datadog's public docs, which will include a template that I will transform into a full-fledged working annotation. We will copy this part here. I start by constructing the annotation by matching the container name I want to monitor. Looking at the redis deployment.yaml, I can see that my container name is called Redis. This is the container name that I will be putting in the annotation. Now that I have both the JSON output and the skeleton of the annotation, I can copy and paste this JSON into the outer curly braces like so. Since I'm not using any init config options, I can remove that section entirely. This is what the annotation will look like in a full deployment manifest. Make sure that this is set in pod level under spec, template, metadata, annotations. Otherwise, the agent won't auto-discover the annotation. Now, as an extra layer of safety, I'll use a JSON validator to check that the JSON isn't broken. Any validator you can find on the web should work. We can see the JSON is good to go. Next, I'll double check the JSON configs against the conf YAML example for the Redis DB integration to confirm that the parameters are correct. In the annotation, I have configured host and port. In lines 19 and 24 of the conf YAML example, I can see that the host and port parameters are required respectively. This confirms that I have the required parameters set to get this to work. Once I validated that everything is correct, I'll run kubectl apply -f redis deployment.yaml to apply the changes. If we run kubectl get pods again, we can see that the pod has been redeployed and run again. The next step is running commands to validate that the Datadog agent has properly auto-discovered the Redis DB annotations and is now running the Redis DB check. First, let's run kubectl get pods in the Datadog namespace to double check the Datadog Agent pod name, copy that, and then run kubectl exec it pod name agent status. Don't forget the namespace as well. Now we can see a huge status output. Scrolling up, I can double check if the Redis DB integration was picked up, and we can see that it was picked up successfully. Another command is the agent config check command, which validates if our configurations are set as expected. We can run the same kubectl exec it pod name -n Datadog, but instead of agent status, we'll change it to agent config check. This output shows all of the integration configurations and log configurations that are picked up by the agent. Scrolling up again, we can find the Redis DB check and see the configurations that are set from the annotation, like host and port. Lastly, there is an agent check Redis DB command, which tells the agent to run the check manually. This is mainly for troubleshooting purposes in the event that the integration was running into some error. Here I am looking for specific troubleshooting logs and information that would let me know if anything goes wrong. There's also a huge list of metrics that the integration will report. Now let's go to the Datadog platform to see if the integration is properly configured and working or not. On the Kubernetes Explorer's pods view, we can see the exact auto-discovery annotations I've configured in the YAML tab of my Redis pod. In the fleet automation view, we can also see the Redis DB integration running. If I click Redis in that view, it opens up the exact configurations and tags in YAML format that are picked up by the agent. We can see the same host and port values as well. This view is convenient because it allows me to see existing integration configurations without using a CLI. It is also helpful for making changes to those integrations if need be. For the sake of this video, if an integration was broken, it would look something like this. At the end of the day, what I'm really after is telemetry data. So over at the metrics summary, we can double check if the Redis metrics have came in or not. We can see that it is populating in this view. If we navigate over to the Metrics Explorer and use a metric like Redis CPU user, we can see that my Redis deployment is reporting this metric in my cluster. So that's how I double checked that my annotations are correct. I used a formatter to convert my configurations from YAML to JSON, a JSON validator to check that the JSON isn't broken, and agent commands to confirm that the Datadog agent is picking up the configurations. I hope you found these tips useful. Thanks for watching, and check out this video's description for resources to learn more.